Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Deviation Nation YouTube channel. It's your boy Dev, and it is week 3 of the KD Kevin Drake show. This is episode 3, and today we're going to start out by talking about a little bit something interesting that's going on in the NFL. And it's got to start with the Cowboys last week. Well, I would guess 2 weeks ago. The Chiefs this past week. And then what might be happening on Sunday in the Cowboys-Eagles game. So the past 2 weeks, the Houston Texans, my Texans, have almost played spoiler for both the Cowboys and the Chiefs. Which you say, when you hear me say almost, you're like, oh, but they still got the win. But here's the thing, and here's the interesting thing about it. If you take those games and you take the footage and everything from those games, then you get something different. Because now there's a blueprint. The Kansas City Chiefs, the reason that their team is so prolific is the passing attack. And when they lost Tyreek Hill in the offseason going to the Miami Dolphins, they got MVS, Juju Smith-Schuster. They drafted a wide receiver that has really great speed in Sky Moore. And then they also traded during the season for Kadarius Toney from the New York Giants. So you think about it, and it's just like Tyreek Hill is the fastest football player on the planet. And he sits there, and he has made the Miami Dolphins offense even crazier than what it was last year with Jalen Waddle. And Jalen Waddle being as prolific as he is too, those two as a tandem wide receiving core makes the Miami Dolphins really crazy. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they haven't really gotten the speed and production out of Sky Moore as they were hoping for when they drafted him. And then Kadarius Toney has only started to become something of a prospect for them in the past few weeks. Juju has been stable. He's not this like crazy fast receiver, but he does have range, and he has jumps. So he can get out on the flat, he can take a slant route and take it 10 to 25 yards, or if he gets out in the open, he can take it the distance. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he's still having the same issues as he did in Green Bay. He's not getting open enough, and when he does get targeted, it's either he's kind of taking his eyes off the ball before he gets downfield, and then he's having these these normal miscues that you see in some wide receivers, but he's just not giving the productivity as what everyone thought he was going to have, especially knowing that he wasn't going to be the number 1 or even barely the number 2. But the most consistent receiver that they have is Travis Kelce, the tight end, and Kelce is on another different level. He's big, he's strong, he's also he's quick as well, he's agile, so he's able to get open and he's able to make people look silly on the perimeter. But it's when you watch the Texans, they didn't even have Derek Stingley. Like, Derek Stingley's on IR, and they were going with a 2-quarterback system as well, making the defense for the Chiefs work as well. But the interesting thing about it is the past 2 weeks, the Texans have made the Cowboys and the Chiefs look vulnerable. The Chiefs really couldn't get their passing attack going until the second half of the game when Kelce came alive, and they started dropping it into the flat and utilizing their running backs out of the backfield as well. Same thing for the Cowboys. Zeke and Tony Pollard couldn't get much mustard in the first half during that game. And also CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown weren't able to get anything going either. Michael Gallup was the star of the first half when it came to the Cowboys-Texans game. But in the second half of that game as well, Tony Pollard started emerging. They started utilizing Zeke out of the backfield, getting him into the receiving game. And that's what kind of got the offenses going for both teams. But the Texans still stayed alive. They were getting cheap shot field goals. They were getting touchdowns in valuable places to keep the games competitive and to make it look like, oh, damn, the Cowboys and Chiefs might just lose this. They did take the Chiefs into overtime, and that's how the Chiefs ended up winning that game. Cowboys, on the other hand, they got a last-second touchdown that secured them the win. And then coming into this past week, the Cowboys ended up going into overtime with the Jaguars, and then there was a pick-6 return for a touchdown to secure the Jaguars win. And everyone's looking at that, and they're like, oh, wow, okay. No one's questioning that the Chiefs are still going to be prolific and make it pretty far in the playoffs. But you look at these past 2 weeks for the Cowboys themselves, then it starts becoming a different issue. Because now everyone's thinking, oh, can Dak actually put this team on his back and throw to win the game? Because he's made so many different errors in the past 2 weeks, especially with interceptions late in the game, and just not being able to get the play production that everyone thought. everyone knows that Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are a two-headed monster to be reckoned with in the backfield for that Cowboys offense. And when they have the run game going, you can barely stop them. And that's why it's going to be interesting coming up this week. Jalen Hurts is not playing. Gardner Minshew is supposedly going to be starting against the Cowboys. And what we know is that offense is still prolific. Gardner Minshew may not have the pure mobility that Jalen Hurts has, but he can sling the rock. And we even saw that in Jacksonville when he was there. They called it Minshew Mania. And even though he regressed and everything, he made errors and everything, he still was a valuable asset to any team. That's why the Eagles picked him up, because they were going to start him over Jalen, but ended up going with Jalen when they drafted him. So we look at it, and we know the defense for the Eagles is going to be stout. We know the offense is still going to produce, even with Gardner Minshew at the helm. The thing everyone's talking about is Dak Prescott. Is he going to be able to command that offense and actually bring them to the playoffs and get them on a Super Bowl run? And there's a lot of people that are doubting him. And it was interesting. I watched a segment from The Herd with Colin Cowherd, and he brought up a very good point. First year he comes into the league as a rookie, 4th-round pick. Tony Romo goes down in the preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. Dak Prescott comes in, ends up leading the team to a 13-3 record, and then losing in the playoffs. Now here's the thing. That first year, Zeke was a monster. Literally, feed him more. Zeke was eating. Zeke was a prolific back that season. Then you come into season 2. They regress. The running game isn't as fluid. You don't have Des Bryant anymore. And Dak is just trying to make it work with what he has. But his passer rating went from, I think he said, 105, 106 to an 80. Then you come into year 3, right? They start out a little strong, and then he goes down with the knee injury. Run game isn't there at all. They don't make it to the playoffs. Jason Garrett loses his job. Year 4 comes around, Mike McCarthy, first year. Dak's coming back off that gruesome knee injury. And it's hit or miss, right? You have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. You have all these stars and everything. But offensive line isn't working as much. Zeke isn't as good as what he was. Dak's still having a hard time running because he's still a little distracted over that knee injury. Year 5 comes around. Everyone says he's distracted. Contract rumors and everything like that. Everyone's going crazy thinking, is he going to be able to take this team far? Gets him to the playoffs, don't get me wrong. Takes him to the playoffs and everything. Gets knocked out, though. Now we come to this year. First game of the season, they lose. And then Dak goes down with a thumb injury. Cooper Rush comes in and wins. Team looks great, even behind Cooper Rush. Then he goes 3-1, and then Dak comes back. And when Dak comes back, they're 6-3. And in those 3 losses, it's the Packers, the Jaguars, and the third loss is Brady, right? You watch those games and he makes so many different errors. Throws interceptions, doesn't read the right routes, run game's not getting started. You're not utilizing Tony Pollard and Zeke like you should. So now we look at it and it's just is this just going to be what we know the Cowboys for? Is Jerry Jones inevitably going to be do we need a new head coach, or do we need to probably think about drafting someone or bringing someone from free agency to put pressure on Dak? And I think the one thing I'm going to say, Mike McCarthy is not the issue. That team is not dependent on the head coach. You have Kellen Moore, you have Dan Quinn, and all these other supporting cast members in the coaching staff. Mike McCarthy is calling the plays. But in all reality, so is Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn for the defense and the offensive receivers. So we can't blame the coaching, because the coaching is not bad. I'm going to say that right now. The coaching for the Cowboys is not bad. Mike McCarthy is actually doing a wonderful job of what he has. The issue lies with Dak Prescott. And it's time to stop making excuses for a 4th-round pick out of Mississippi State. He's athletic. He's got a decent arm. He's a good kid. He really is. He makes too many issues. And now I know a lot of you diehard Cowboys fans are hearing this and being like, huh, who does that sound like? Tony Romo. Romo, great story. Undrafted, comes in. He's athletic. He's got an arm. And he's commanding the offense. But the one thing about Romo that a lot of people hated was the fact that in big moments, in crunch time, it was a coin flip of what he was going to do. It was either you were going to see this immaculate performance, he was going to sling the ball, win the game for the Cowboys, or he was going to throw a pick and seal the game for the other team. And that's something that looms over the Cowboys. Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman. Staubach will always be a great Cowboy legend. So will Troy Aikman. But Troy Aikman had Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and a whole slew of other options. When you look at Troy Aikman's record, or even just his career, he's the Cowboys quarterback that didn't have to throw the ball much. And when he did, they weren't just short yardage plays. They were big plays. Think about it. If you go look at the Cowboys' history and their quarterbacks, Troy Aikman is an outliner. He's got 3 Super Bowls. But when it comes to passing, he had a run game that worked for him. Staubach had an arm. He had a cannon. But Romo, Dak, and Staubach threw it. Aikman had Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin and all these other options. Aikman didn't have to do much. He wasn't mobile at all. Did he try and run? Yeah. And he got yardage. He got touchdowns. But when you look at it, Romo, Dak, and Staubach threw that thing. Staubach, the most prolific out of the 3. I would say, in this moment, Dak is ahead of Romo. But the issue still lies is that the running game is always what the Cowboys have needed. Cowboys are a run team. They can throw it. They've always had great receivers. They always have. Michael Irvin, they retired that number 88. Des Bryant came along and got his blessing to wear it. CeeDee Lamb comes in, gets Des and Michael's blessing to wear number 88. They've always had prolific receivers. But a run game is always what the Cowboys have needed to make it. Emmitt Smith, DeMarco Murray, and Zeke when he first came out. And Tony Pollard is starting to emerge as that as well. That is something that the Cowboys need to work on. They really do. And if they can't figure out the fact that their run game is their most prolific part of their offense and Dak doesn't need to throw it so much, they will be a surefire Super Bowl team. But if they keep asking Dak to throw that ball 35 times or more, they're not going to do it. Right now, if they keep going at the pace they are, I can see that the NFC Championship game will be a game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, with one of those teams making it to the Super Bowl. Now, I started this out by talking about the fact that the Texans almost played spoiler with the Cowboys and the Chiefs. And the reason being is to tell you that the Cowboys have always been overlooked, and they still are. And the reason being is because of their flaws and the issues that we see week in and week out. The reason I brought up the Chiefs is because Patrick Mahomes still won that game. Got them the win. But no one doubts the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and that team in general. The Cowboys need to prove themselves. So when they get into the wild card round, no one's going to be like, oh, they're going to get knocked out. Everyone's going to look at the Cowboys when they get into the playoffs to be like they are going to be a one-and-done team. That is something that you have to realize when it comes to these playoffs. There will be multiple different teams that you look at and you're just like, damn, they're going to be one and done. Right now, we're looking at the NFC South in general and saying, all 4 of those teams, one of them makes it to the playoffs, that one's getting knocked out immediately. The playoffs are going to be a time of reckoning for the NFL. Where right now, the AFC, we don't know if it's going to be the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, or someone else that makes it to the Super Bowl. Right now in the NFC, there's only 2 teams that we predict will make it to the Super Bowl. And that is either the Philadelphia Eagles or the Brock Purdy third-string quarterback-led San Francisco 49ers. And that should say something. That should tell you the difference between the NFC and the AFC. That should tell you what people think of the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, everybody else. That no matter what, they all believe that the Philadelphia Eagles or the San Francisco 49ers will be the teams to beat in the NFC. I just spent 16 minutes talking about all this. The NFL is starting to come to a close. Right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions, both of those teams that started under 500, are now on the cusp of making the playoffs. The Detroit Lions started 1-6. They have gone 6-1 since. Dan Campbell has turned this team around. They're 7-7. Jared Goff is playing at a high level. Jameson Williams, first-round pick out of Alabama, first catch of the year off of an ACL injury. Touchdown for the Detroit Lions. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams are starting to show up as prolific backs for that team. And we're all rooting for them. Hell, there's a lot of people that think that the 7-7 Detroit Lions can easily knock the Vikings out of the playoffs if they played again. And that is food for thought, everybody. I want y'all to know that this wasn't supposed to be Cowboys heavy, but it was something that y'all needed to know. When it comes to these playoffs, when it comes to this last 3 weeks of the NFL season, the Cowboys are set for failure. The Chiefs are set for success. And in 2 weeks, the Houston Texans, the worst team in football, showed that they almost played spoiler. But they did it against a team that everyone is doubting because of the way their quarterback plays. And the other team is still being vied as a Super Bowl contender. The NFL is not for the weak. The NFL is any given Sunday. And there's a lot of people that forget about that. The Dallas Cowboys hold their fate in their hand. And if they drop the ball, it'll be just another disappointing year for them boys. Could they prove us all wrong? 110%. Will they? Remains to be seen. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Kevin Drake Show. I hope y'all enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Give me ideas to talk about. In the comment section, I want y'all to bring up topics. I want y'all to talk to me about the NCAA, NFL, NBA, anything. Let me know, and we'll talk about it. I'll mention you in the video. I'll hit you up, and I'll reply to you and be like, this is going in the show. Be on the lookout for the shout out. But until next week, everybody, I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend and a Merry Christmas. This has been your host, Crazy Kev. It's Kevin Drake, Deviation. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. Till next week, I will catch everybody later. Peace out.